Hello and welcome everyone. I am your host Elias, and I'm here with my co-host Christian, and we have two guests this time. Um, Everyone here is part of our group's D&D sessions, which is Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to be talking about how those work and why you might find interest in partaking in a D&D group. So, how about you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, let's just go left to right.
Hmm? My name is Christian. I am 18 years old, as you may know now, and uh, I've been in this. I've been in some few episodes talking about video editing and League of Legends, and now on the recent episodes, I've been talking about anime and manhwa and etc. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm Carl. I was in the podcast about League of Legends with Christian, and then also the podcast about fighting games, as well as the podcast about language learning with Theodor.
And that's a nice introduction for me. I'm Theodor. I've been in three other episodes now: language learning, programming, music production. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, good. And I'm just gonna start this like this. What does D&D or Dungeons and Dragons mean to you?
Um, to me, yeah, I don't know if I speak for everyone here, but I like the storytelling and actually have an kinda impact on the story. I generally just I've been a huge MMO fan, so creating my own character and have more control of like what the character is supposed to look like, what his powers is supposed to be, and overall just his backstory, creating an own backstory and everything like that. I think that kinda sold the whole D&D thing for me. I don't know if I speak for you, Carl, and you, Theo, but that's generally why I got really hooked in playing D&D with the boys. Yeah.
All right, what about you, Carl?
Well, for me, Dungeons and Dragons, for those of you who do not know, is a role playing game where everyone gets a character and you go through a story that a dungeon master, the person who created the story, kind of leads you through it. And you, with your character and with your friends, have a massive impact on the story and pretty much have free uh, will to do anything you want. And so, to me, that's what Dungeons and Dragons is. It is having fun and role playing with your friends through a story that you have incredible, um, an incredible amount of freedom to affect. And so, um, watching a movie or playing a game or reading a book where the story is, not your own and it can't be affected by you, uh, is a completely different experience from Dungeons and Dragons, where you have this free range. And that's Dungeons and Dragons for me.
Mm.
Freedom.
Yeah, I
Theodore.
I would agree with that. It's just a more free game, basically. Mostly like any other story game, except you actually have impact on the story. There isn't just a couple of solid, like unchangeable lines that you can take in the story. Like it can branch off to anything,
Mm.
and yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
coolest part, the most important part.
So I am the DM, which Carl mentioned earlier, who kind of orchestrates the story and creates the world that the player characters are going to interact with and create their story with. And where the fun is for me is in preparing the sessions and making a world just come to life, a world that my friends can interact with, and create a story which they can interact with as well. Uh, so I think that if you're a creative person who likes to plan things out and be the one who creates a good time for the rest of your friends, then being the DM is a very fun thing to do and be. So uh, we have a few things to go through here, but one thing that I think could get us started going about what D&D really means to us personally is if everyone could just mention a moment from our D&D sessions that they in particular felt strongly for.
Hmm.
So we can go from left to right again.
Yeah. Uh, for me, it was probably the beginning. I don't know.
Hmm.
Mostly because I felt the fun parts about me missing everything and not hitting a single enemy and only hitting trees. I think that was probably the most memorable part for me. And then to my first like actual kill on a boss where I dealt a lot of damage because that was like the first time I really get to see what the class that I chose what it can do. Uh, so and most recently, the fights that we have had felt like I had more impact in because I feel like I learned more on how this because as I didn't mention this before, but this is the first like role play kind of game I have ever played. So I'm not normal in these type of games. So it's a fun experience in general, like the whole thing that we have done now. I would say the whole journey to where we are right now is a memorable thing. But I think the beginning when it was all like fresh start, everything was new. I think I have some form of not nostalgic feeling, but the beginning was probably the most memorable part because I was still like learning about the class drive shows and learn about backstories from other players and etc. So yeah.
Mm. All right, Carl, do you have any particular moment
Um,
that you enjoyed?
oh, definitely. Multiple of them. But if I had to mention one, uh, it would be when it was me and uh, I believe Emil and Christian. Emil is not here right now, but Christian is. So it was me, Emil, and Christian, and we had the objective to kind of sneak into a harbor. Um,
I remember this.
and yes, and so I disguised myself, and they hid inside of a barrel, I believe, one or two barrels,
Yeah.
as they are dwarves and shorter, so they would fit. Meanwhile, I am a pirate and kind of fit in with the harbor aesthetic. And so the plan was that we walk up to this harbor and we tell the guards there that, or it was actually a boathouse, I believe, that we were sneaking into. So we walk up to the guards and we tell them that a shipment of ropes, I believe, or something along those lines,
Mm.
had come in early or come in late. I can't exactly remember which. And uh, luckily enough, I rolled very well, and this is something very important in Dungeons and Dragons, where you roll dice to determine how well you perform different or certain actions. And I rolled particularly well, and so I was actually the plan worked. However, what we didn't expect was that I wasn't let in. They only took the barrels, and so I was split apart from Christian and Emil, who were now inside the boathouse. Meanwhile, I was stuck on the outside and couldn't help them. And so that was a kind of
Yeah.
fun consequence that we didn't expect when we planned planned our actions. And to me, that was a very fun Dungeons and Dragons moment because I got to listen as they uh, kind of tried to make things happen inside the boathouse. Meanwhile, I couldn't really affect them, and I knew it was because of my own actions earlier. So that was pretty fun.
Mm.
All right.
Mm.
Theodore,
Yeah.
any
As
moments?
yes. As Carl mentioned, I wasn't part of that beginning part of the harbor thing because I missed that session,
Mm.
and so my character was out doing other things. But when I got back the next session, uh, they consequences happened, and these two dwarves happened to be in prison, and so there had to be a prison break, obviously. So me and Carl were trying to get into prison while these two dwarves were trying to get out of prison. And so we meet halfway and we like look at each other and point at each other and like, hey yo, boys, that's you. And, and then there were combat and it was very fun and
Oh, the old man.
yeah, it was really like something that would never happen otherwise. You wouldn't simultaneously escape prison by yourself and also get help by your friends, and then kind of meet in the middle and like, oh, what the
Yeah.
fuck, we have to get out now.
Yeah.
So that was
Oh yeah, dude, I forgot about those. I didn't forget about those, but
so that was fun.
no,
And there was also a
no,
bunch of random characters in the world that like helped us out and
yeah,
that we had to interact with to like achieve what we did.
yeah, I
It was
remember
very
that.
dynamic, very fun.
The old grandpa fucked up the guard.
Yeah.
I remember, dude. Oh, dude, yeah, that was a memorable moment. I remember me and Emil working together to basically talk to Grandpa. Hey, do you think you can beat the soldier? And he's like, yeah, of course I can. And then we just lure the guard, and the Grandpa get the key. No, we get the keys. We lock. We get out from the prison cell, and then we help the grandpa. The grandpa like, hey, come at me, bro. beat beat up the soldier, and we just start to fucking move out, and then we meet you guys, and then there's the big boss after we've defeated some soldiers.
Mm.
I remember. What was the boss name again? It was something.
John of the Dead Rat's Den.
Oh yeah, we
We
made
just call them
memes.
we call them Big Hoss.
Yeah, and we made memes when they call upon Big John. Do you remember
John.
the teleport, the boss that teleports? Wasn't that the arm that Emil has as a
Yeah.
weapon?
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the characters or one of the players in our sessions actually wields the arm of that boss as a weapon now.
Yeah.
Quite gruesome. It makes sense in the story, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of. He's a very strong dwarf. He is. It's hilarious.
uh, I think that for me as a DM, that's also some of my favorite moments. In particular, the prison break on the two dwarf side, making the character, which was the grandpa, who is an old soldier, kind of hates his grandson, who is locked in with. Um, who's just a bit rude, but in a fun way, and a bit too strong despite his age.
Mm.
It's very fun making that character and portraying that character. But I think that my favorite character is Captain Duvoniers,
Oh yeah, that guy.
who takes the crew across the world on his boat occasionally. He just loves the
Always by
ocean.
random chance.
Always by
Oh
random
yeah,
chance, he just keeps happening to be where they are.
it's fate. Yeah, I remember we fought the screaming mermaid girl
Mm,
Mm.
that we lost a comrade in.
mm.
He was killed by
Yeah.
the sea monsters.
Yeah,
And then calls when we first met when we met the polar bears, and Carl was like, "Dude, run! They're super fast." What was it?
Yeah, so we had a little inside joke during that session as well where we fought. So Duanier took us out on his ship across the ocean, and we had to fight a sea monster, for lack of better words, during that time. And the entire time, uh, basically my character or I acted as if the only the only threat was what I called sea bears or sea polar bears, and obviously we didn't meet any sea polar bears during that session, but Elias then incorporated actual sea polar bears who could run on water in a later session, which was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that was some good memories.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I'm trying to get with this discussion of the good moments that D&D brings you, because you get so many good memories after having played Dungeons and Dragons. Like, we've only had 17 sessions over a year because our schedules seldom align or there's always something up. But still, despite that, there's just a lot of great moments on these 17 sessions.
17 sessions. That's a lot, actually. Now when I think of it.
It's
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 17. There's
Yeah.
still yeah,
It
well,
feels
we
like.
have done a lot of things. We've been to 3 continents, so yeah, I guess there has been a lot.
Yeah. Wait, when did we start this? It was like
it was
this.
A year and a
last
bit ago.
summer, I believe.
Yeah. That's actually a lot. 17 sessions.
Mm. It's roughly one every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Although some have been very close together, some have been very far apart.
Yeah.
And, between the one that we had last weekend and the one before that, it was 6 weeks. So that was quite a delay. But it's still fun. It's still fun.
Yeah.
So, what is something that you maybe do not enjoy about D&D that much? I know that it's very great, but just something.
Hmm.
Well, if we have to name something that we dislike,
I
sometimes, and I know that this is really difficult, but and especially for a new dungeon master, new DM, to create a balance between enemies and characters. So obviously, your characters, or well, this might not be that obvious, but your characters are they have predetermined powers. So when you level up, the more you use your character, the more you're going to level that character up. And when you level your character up, they obviously get stronger. When they get stronger, they can get new abilities and new cool stuff to do. And I know that this has been a problem for Elias a couple of times because you mentioned it that creating enemies for us to encounter is sometimes quite difficult because you don't know exactly how powerful we are. Because our power also comes from how we choose to use our characters. So sometimes we may go completely off the rails and ask or try to do something. For example, oh, could I, in this situation, run up to the monster and try to swing my axe at its neck, cutting off the monster's head? Um, this isn't a particular move that my character has, but maybe I want to try to do it anyways. And then Elias has to kind of figure out if that's possible. And so the balance is also difficult because knowing how strong our characters are in a given moment and then creating uh, enemies that match that power can be quite difficult. And I've noticed this because sometimes we have actually fought monsters that have been a little too easy. because of one lucky roll here or there. I remember a session when I think it was when we met those sea polar bears, where one of them uh, died immediately due to Christian rolling very well and having a new, stronger upgrade that Elias maybe didn't account for.
Mm.
And so that might be a slight disadvantage to people trying to get into Dungeons and Dragons, where creating a story and creating enemies for that story might be quite difficult to balance.
Mm.
Do also note that we are not doing like strictly basic
That
D&D.
is true. We are not doing
Elias has taken very like well
uh,
creative strides in the world and made his own race of creatures and whatever. And if you just stick to basic D&D with basic creatures,
it would
then
likely be more
yeah, it would
balanced.
be yeah exactly.
I'm
They're
trying to reinvent the
more
wheel a
common.
bit, I suppose, with my story.
Mm.
Where were we? Oh, right, something negative. So, yeah, as a DM, it's definitely more quite difficult to try and balance things. Like, oh, is this going to be too difficult for my players? Is this going to be too easy for my players? What difficult is it that they actually want? What kind of creative decisions might they do that makes it too easy or too hard? There's a lot to take into account, and thus creating an encounter that is as fun as possible. It can be quite difficult, and it can require a lot of thinking and planning ahead. What about you, Christian and Theodore? Anything for players in particular that might not be very enjoyable?
Um, I think maybe for people that don't have this whole like uh what is it called? For people who don't really like to create their own story. Do you get what I'm saying? Yet, like,
Hmm.
this game might not be for people who are not looking for a creative game to create your own character, to work out your own story. There's some people that I know that don't like games, like for example World of Warcraft, because they don't like the idea of creating their own character. They like the more, oh, there's already a story to follow, kinda. Do you
Mm.
know what I'm saying? So I think if you don't like this whole, oh yeah, you have more on your own creative will to make a character and follow a story that could change based on your answers and what you do, like the things you do in the world has some form of consequences. There's some people that don't like that kind of story and that kind of game. So I think, but mostly I have not been having any problems with D&D. Like I have literally zero negative uh thinking, because most is like, oh, it's based on luck, what you roll. And it's even funny when you don't roll anything good, because funny stuff happens, like for example, Emil being clumsy, getting like a really bad roll on stealth, so he get detected. Oh no, what will happen now? Everything is like so unexpected, like unpredictable, and I love that. So I have not a single, even the times where I kind of did nothing, I just hit a bunch of trees. I had a blast, because I even got like a memory thing from it, that I get plus damage against trees. I mean, even the bad stuff that are supposed to be negative, it's actually fun, because it creates some form of comedy to the whole story.
All right, that's a great negative to speak about.
Mm.
All right, Theodore. Theodore.
Yeah. Well, I also guess that the dice rolling is both positive and negative. I had a really bad experience. It wasn't a boss fight, which means one big ass enemy that deals a lot of damage.
Mm.
And this enemy basically killed me in 2 hits. while I think I fired my character's an archer, so I think I fired about like 16 arrows, and maybe one or two of them hit, and I got hit twice by the boss, and I almost died. So that was a less than optimal experience because I didn't really do anything wrong. I just never rolled well. The dice didn't roll well. And then I got hit by random stuff from the boss, and I almost lost my character. So that was unfortunate and not the greatest
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
But I understand what you mean. I've also been in that situation. I've almost lost my character 3 times now,
Mm,
from bosses, and I understand fully. It's irritating. It's irritating. But for me, uh, speaking from my perspective, it's like it's quite intense. And I don't know, I kind of like that. Oh shit! If I don't get a good role now, my character is gone. I have to make a new character, and I can have good memories with the character I'm having right now, Dregdon, the Thunder Knight. Uh, so it all depends on this role. I kind of like that. It's intense, and if I roll something good, it's like, yeah, like I did it. I'm alive. Or if you roll something good, it's like the last hit, and then the boss is dead. That happened to me 4 times now. Like the last roll to kill the boss, and if I don't kill the boss, some of us will die, or probably me, because I don't know. The bosses normally don't like me sometimes. I realize that. Probably because I'm always so aggressive. Yeah, but um, so that's my, yeah. Just to add, I like the intense, so, but that's could also be something for people. You can kind of hear the experience. So if you kind of like the intense moments, well, D&D is probably your game then. But it also depends on the DM masters. I've read some stories that people have played with a DM or a team member that just do awful things or are just unfair, for an example. There's a bunch of stories online, and if you have one of those experience, I may not I recommend D&D, but it all depends on who you're playing with, because it should be at least friends that you know somewhat, and that you can trust, and that you all are aiming to have a good time. If it's with people that don't really aim to have a good time, they only aim to have an ego, then I would not recommend playing with them. Try to find someone who has good reputation of D&D, or a friend who has played D&D for a while that's really into the whole role play thing.
mm,
So, yeah.
mhm. That's very well put. DD is a collaborative effort, and if you don't think that you have people that are good to play with, then the experience can definitely go down. Luckily, all of us have been quite fun to play with, I believe. So
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
been a very fun thing that we have. It's given us a lot of good memories. Any final notes before we finish this episode?
No,
Play
not really.
D&D. If
Yeah,
you can't already tell, you really should play Dungeons and Dragons.
it's really fun.
It's really fun.
Yeah, I
Even if
was
even if you have a couple friends who do not think that it would be fun to play Dungeons and Dragons,
forced them to.
yeah, exactly. Force them to because they
Yeah,
will enjoy it.
I was
Okay,
a
maybe
bit.
don't force them to, but they'll
No,
probably still enjoy it if they want to play. So,
yeah, I was kind of skeptic with playing D&D in the first place,
Mm,
because I have had a couple of friends who played it and it didn't turn out good in their. I have heard stories with friendships that have been broken after D&D sessions, but luckily I have the luck, so I have not been any friendship that have been ruined by D&D. Only more so that I've only had what's it called, a better relationship kind of with my friends. Like I got to know Elias a little bit more than I did before. And yeah, just overall being creative with friends.
Hmm.
Just the whole concept of that. Yeah, I'm kind of in love with it. So yeah.
All right, I think that's a good note to end this episode on then. It's been great having you here. I hope that those of you who are listening will give Dungeons and Dragons a try, or at least try to give it a try. And I hope that you all have a nice day. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.